Today we're going to take a closer look at one of the cheapest electric bikes on the market today and see just what spending well under $1,000 gets you in today's market when it comes to folding e-bikes. We'll take it for a spin in the city and off-road as well because you can have a bit more fun there, and we'll get into all of the nitty-gritty details that you need to know before buying, and of course top speed and acceleration runs. But first, let's take a look at how easy the assembly process is once it arrives at your door. Once you crack the box open, you'll find that the Ecotric Cheetah 2.0 has been packaged well enough that it can be thrown around a good bit by delivery drivers before you'll have to worry about any damage. Then after you pull it out of the box and check out the detailed instructions, you'll see that all you need to do is install a few things before you're riding, and every tool you'll need is included. First up is mounting the handlebar that already has all the controls installed on it, and then you've got the front wheel to install next, followed up by the front fender and headlight that are as easy to install as can be with the supplied hardware. Then you just have to pop the seat in there and start cracking open the other boxes where you'll find your battery and charger, but I would open those first so it's charging while you're assembling the bike. Why? Well, remember when we were kids on Christmas morning and having to wait on batteries to charge?
Ain't nobody got time for that.
And now that we've got it charged up and ready to ride, let's dive into some of the details and specs on the bike before we get into my thoughts on what it's like to ride it on varying terrains. We'll start off first with the bike's frame, which just so happens to have a party trick up its sleeve. As we mentioned earlier, it folds. Its aluminum frame helps to keep the weight down, so it tips the scales at only 58 pounds, and when it comes to its overall load capacity, you're looking at 250 pounds. Let's get back to that folding part real quick though, as it's super easy to do with it having a release button to fold the handlebar down, and then one more in the middle of the frame so it folds together, and bam, you're done. With the entire process being very easy for anyone to do, and these safety latches on both mechanisms helps to ensure it doesn't happen unless you want it to. The seat is pretty comfy overall, and those springs do help smooth out the ride a bit since this is a hardtail bike with it only having suspension up front, but we'll dive more into that shortly. Now, the only downfall to the seat on this bike in my opinion is its height, with your lowest setting being 33 inches and then up to 39, so if you're on the vertically challenged side of things, you may need to keep that in mind. Now, we're almost to the motor and electronics, but let's finish up on the bike's frame with a few more things that are attached to it. One being suspension. It has an adjustable fork up front when it comes to preload to help dial it in a bit more for your personal preferences, and it also has a lockout too. And even if you don't plan on taking it off-road, having that suspension up front really helps smooth out the ride, and you'll be thanking yourself later, trust me. While out back, it's a hardtail, so no suspension to soak up the bumps, but that's where these fat tires come into play to really help soak up the rough terrain, and those paired up with these springs in the seat make a pretty significant difference. And even though you've got those 4-inch wide and 20-inch tall knobby tires that look like they're made for just trekking off-road, they are buttery smooth on the pavement as well, while also giving you confidence to head off the beaten path. And with those beefy steel wheels they're wrapped around, it really opens up the door to go anywhere. Plus, mounted to the frame, you've got this super handy accessory cargo rack to strap stuff down, and they also offer a passenger seat and other miscellaneous accessories too. Now, wheels and tires aren't really that important if you can't stop them, and that brings us over to the brakes. You've got disc brakes front and rear with the 160mm rotors on both ends, and they are not only easy to adjust, but they offer up plenty of braking power with enough feel on the lever to where you know when you're fixing to lock them up. Next up, let's get into the most important thing about this bike, and that's the electronics behind it all. First up is what's making it go, and that's the 500-watt brushless rear hub motor that helps propel you to a max speed of 20 miles per hour. Now, you have multiple ways to control the motor's power, but we'll get more into that in a second. To supply that motor with power, you've got a 48-volt, 13-amp-hour lithium-ion battery that can be left in the bike to charge or remove by simply turning your key to unlock and then sliding it right out after you pop the seat up. And that battery paired up with this motor gives you an estimated range of 23 to 48 miles, depending on how much pedal assist you're using, but we'll dive more into that shortly. So, now that we've got the battery and motor out of the way, we need to talk about what's working with them to drive the wheels we talked about earlier, and that brings us to the handlebars, where you can easily control the Shimano 7-speed derailleur by your right hand, and so far this setup has been extremely smooth in its operation, whether I'm playing on the pavement or off-road. And keep in mind, picking the proper gear, just like in a car, can affect your overall range significantly. And speaking of range, you may have noticed that the right grip looks a little different from the left. Well, unlike some of them with a thumb throttle, this bike has a twist throttle. So if you're in the mood to be a little lazy and don't want to pedal, just roll the throttle back like a motorcycle and you're off. Now we've got to have a way to control the motor on this electric bicycle, and that's where this display comes into play. And thankfully, one of the recent updates to this bike brought over this LCD display that helps you keep track of all the information you need to know, with everything from your battery level to a speedometer, odometer, trip meter, pedal assist levels, and whether or not your lights are on and more. Now you may be asking, pedal assist modes? What are those? Well, you've got an option to just pedal the bike if you'd like a normal bicycle, but
why would I do that?
And for those that would like some power assist from the electric motor, you've got pedal assist modes 1 through 5, and with each bump up, it steadily increases how much it assists and the overall speeds you're going to hit. And if you're in the position where you need to push the bike but don't really want to push it, just hold the down arrow for its walking mode, and then you're not having to push a 50-pound bike. Now, with all of that being said, what does someone that normally rides motorcycles have to think about this electric bike from Ecotric? Well, I'm loving it so far. Like I said in my last e-bike video, on the 750 watt In the Air Colts model, I'm having a lot more fun on these than I originally thought I would, despite them being so much slower than your typical motorcycle. Why? Well, I was able to take it to areas that I would normally never be able to go on a motorcycle, but with this e-bike, nobody bats an eye. I was able to explore corners of my city that I never knew existed, and you can do it too, all without breaking a sweat, or if you're wanting to get some exercise in, as we all need a bit more of that, it's as simple as pushing a button to increase or decrease your workload. Plus, I find myself breaking out the bike for quick and simple trips around the house. For example, need to make a quick trip to the grocery store? Yeah, not breaking out the car for that when I can just hop on the bike and have a bit more fun on the trek there. Long story short though, I found myself to enjoy riding this a lot more than I originally thought I would, and I keep coming up with excuses to head out for a ride, just like we all do with our motorcycles. But that's only a small sample of this bike though, and I'll have some more videos coming in the future as we put more and more miles on it and see what it's like in a long-term scenario. But I gotta say, this bike has delivered on everything they advertised so far when it comes to range, charge times, and so on, with no issues to date. Knock on wood. And if you're interested in more information and or possibly purchasing one of these, I'll have links below, and they do help support what I'm doing here on the channel at no extra cost to you, so please check them out. That's enough rambling from me though. What do you guys think about this bike? And really, e-bikes in general. These videos aren't just for me to ramble on, so let's talk about it all down in the comments section, and if you've got any questions, just let me know. And on that note, thanks for watching, and a big thank you to our channel members and Patreons for helping to keep this train chugging along, and we'll see you guys in the next one.